Podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gamers. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowers, also known as Seventh Mastery.
Kristen. I have been so happy in 3D print land lately.
I am so jealous in 3D print land lately.
Oh, yes. More time with the new toy.
Yes.
And finally printing things that I'm not destroying on purpose.
Yes. I think I saw one of those things, but you're going to tell me about it, I'm thinking.
Yeah, so I've been... Okay, yeah, we talked about this a little bit last time. Spiel is happening. I have to go to Spiel. OPR is going to be at Spiel.
Have to. He has to go to Spiel, people. Come on now. You
have
get to.
No, have to go to Spiel.
Get to.
This is work, and it's going to feel like work the whole time.
It's going to feel awesome, and you're going to get to be in an awesome place with awesome people.
This is true. I'm going to get to be hanging. I'm going to be hanging out with the Titan Forge crew. And the OPR crew, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think the MMF crew is going to be there too.
Nice.
So it's going to be a lot of cool stuff.
I have all the jealous, all of it, like industrial size jealous.
So for both play and work, I'm printing stuff for Spiel. So like armies to go play with friends over there with, extras in case we have problems or breakages with the stuff already shipped over there. All sorts of fun printing with the Spiel. And oh my goodness, does the new Saturday make this so much enjoyable. Like I gave it all the best praise last week, and it's just continued down that path. I'm especially now that I'm not experimenting on stuff. I'm just printing stuff with more familiar resin. So I'm back to using Atlas Vulcan resin, which I've been testing that out for a little bit now and using the crap out of it and enjoying it quite a bit.
I believe we've had a request for a summary of
So we have had the user ask us to give more thoughts. So Atlas Vulcan resin, it's weird because it comes in bags, but now they have a bottle option where you can get a bottle.
I don't have a problem with bags. I don't have a problem with bag wine either.
There is actual legitimate reasons to go get one of the bottles, which is the intended purpose of the bottle. Is the bottle becomes the bottle, and the bags become refills for the bottle.
Okay, I like that. I'm on board. It's kind of like there's a lot of packaging for dishwashers and stuff the same way.
Right. So like, I found that like adding Tenacious to the bags was like a fun. Like the bags absolutely have the capacity for it, but like I had to like put it into. I had to use like my little resin syringes that I use to empty the vats with.
Sure.
And just like. So I need 150 cc's of Tenacious and like squirting it into the little nozzle lid.
You're so technical. I love it. I'm like eyeball. Okay, there's that much space and good enough.
And honestly, I don't know that I need as much Tenacious in this stuff because this isn't as good as Elgo ABS Plus with Tenacious Mix on its own. But even on its own, it's a little bit more durable and friendly
than the ABS just by itself.
Just normal ABS.
Cool.
There are some downsides, not many. One is that it comes in not very many colors. So you have the light gray, which is kind of light gray tinged green.
I mean, it's got to look to me. It almost looks like a brown, a little brown tone. But yeah.
I paint these anyway. You know, I don't.
Right. I mean, obviously.
Right. But if you're looking for fun colors, and
do they have any translucent?
I don't know. I think it's like white and gray are your options.
Okay.
So I think they might be adding more.
You know, and then I like the translucent ones. And
it separates not as bad as navy gray from Ceratec, you know, the very beloved Ceratec ABS Fast Navy Gray.
Are we talking like separating over time, like if you leave in your tank?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure we're being clear. So,
what happens there is that the pigments separate on this one. So like the actual resin is fine, and then it becomes like almost completely ice clear.
Oh,
and
weird.
All the pigments are at the bottom.
So you could like, almost make it translucent.
Maybe but it does mix up really fast. So it's and it hasn't interfered with printing before. Even when I didn't catch it, ended up with some weird looking skeletons. But that was it.
Were they partially translucent in places?
Well, it's more like partially translucent, and then like the pigments just like marbling up the skeleton. It's like it'd be a cool effect to do on purpose.
Right? Yeah, I was about to say.
Do you want clear marble skeletons? This is the way to do it.
TPK Terrain has asked, you use syringes to open your vat, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
Interesting. I pour it from the vat through a funnel and filter it directly back in the bottle. How is syringing better?
Okay, so syringing is better than basic pouring because you can control it easier and there's less spilling. Because when I try to pour the vat, especially on these mid-size and larger printers, you're basically balancing a tray of viscous liquids and then trying to tilt them over ever so slightly onto a funnel that you hope is balanced well above the lid. And viscous things, if it hits that funnel wrong, will pop that thing out and you'll spill. And spills are bad.
So Param has actually just narrated my life because this is something I do all the time. Although I've gotten much better at just eyeballing the quantity of resin I need for a couple prints and using almost all of it.
Right.
But yeah.
I don't empty my vat often because usually I just keep topping it up and just using it and using it.
Well, you are printing an entire, robot legion to take over the planet. So
right. But when I do need to do it, so if I need to do a resin change or anything like that, and right now my Saturn Ultra, I don't have alternate resin vats like I did for my old Saturn. I'll need to look into that because that was super inconvenient. So like just I have like one of these big 100 milliliter syringes, and it has like a little attachment that lets you like a little bitty tube that you can attach, so you can just put the tube down in here and just suck all that resin up in here. Pour it into the bottle through the filter. You still use the filters to make sure that any contaminants didn't get in the bottle. And just a couple of those, and you're left with just a sticky vat that is at that point easy to clean with paper towel and alcohol without any spillage.
Do you still flash cure the base layer though?
Huh?
Like, because I'll still flash cure when I'm trading out my resin. I'll still flash like clean cure the bottom.
Oh, you'll do a clean cycle.
Yeah.
No. Like it depends on what I'm doing. If I have a reason to believe there's a failure, I will.
Yeah. Well, definitely, because then there might be something stuck on it.
Yeah. So otherwise, then I'm just letting the filter do its job.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Flash curing that last little bit can sometimes help, but with the syringe, it just makes it so easy. And then to clean the syringe, all you do is you just run some alcohol in and out of it over and over again, and it cleans the syringe enough.
You must have a lot more alcohol after all the processing stuff, because we also talked about before we got started today that Param uses sometimes a double dip where he does his older alcohol and then uses a cleaner. I have done that, but I found it was very intensive on my alcohol. But you're saying it actually saves you alcohol, so I'm just curious.
Right, because the clean bath doesn't get dirty as fast, and the dirty bath gets dirty real fast, but you don't have to worry about it too much because the clean bath will take care of a lot of that. And then when the dirty bath gets basically it lets me know when it's time to filter the resin, because when I'm using the clean bath and I start to see little clouds entering the clean bath from the dirty bath, it means it's time for that to go out into the sun and to then get filtered. And the cool syringes can help there too, because then you can filter by siphoning off the top layer.
So wait, are you like curing? Because when I cure my alcohol, the whole thing is wasted. It's all goo. Like it turns into like a jello.
If you let it go too long, you can't recycle it.
Yeah. Mine just looks like some sort of gelatinous cube. Right.
So that's why. So this is a dirty bath, clean bath. Dirty bath will get dirty in a hurry. And then the clean bath cleans it up. And then you have your water bath. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I've got that.
Yeah, if you make it to the third step, and any cloud of anything comes off that model into the water, it's time to cycle your baths. So your old dirty bath gets put into a container, goes out in the sun. I like to use used milk jugs.
Jugs, yes. I have picked this habit up from you.
Yep.
It
cures for a day, and then I'll let it settle. And then I'll use the little syringe with the little hose to siphon off the good clean stuff from the top.
So you are using that back in your new dirty bath then?
No, then it becomes the new clean bath.
Oh, really?
Because now that is clean. And the old clean bath is the new dirty bath. And then periodically you get more resin to top off your...
For listeners, I'm giving him a lot of side eye and suspicion.
Why?
because I'm just not sure. I will have to practice this myself.
Hello, Humberto. Good to see you again.
So, what were you printing?
Dwarves.
Dwarves?
Do the new dwarf guilds from OPR, because like I want to have a fire team of the little beardy dudes with shotguns, and I like it. And I like dwarfs. This should not be a surprise to anybody.
I mean, who doesn't? I mean, if you don't, I question you. I
And also
believe
give
one.
me an excuse to use the dwarf models of us to be heroes in the firefight crew.
Gosh, I forget about those. I did the halflings, I think, because
Mhm.
I was joking that like my players could like take out their frustration on me and assault the innocent halfling who looked like me. Blasted Samaflange has joined us. Hello.
Hello, all sorts of fun people.
Comet Lord,
it's an all-star
Scott!
cast. TPK
Holy
Terrain,
cow!
Humberto, Samaflange, Comet Lord,
I need to
Alex,
get
David.
I need to get your slots, by the way, Scott. So, like,
Those
tell me the
slots
best
are-
way to get your slotty, because I mean,
Those are
your
great.
frogs, because we don't want to get you in trouble legally.
I really
Your
love those
chaos
frogs. Those frogs look great. You need to go back to listeners. Go buy Comet Lord's frogs. They're
Yes,
wonderful.
of course. When did I realize I needed them? Right after the sale ended.
Oh no.
Anyway,
and I've been printing off a bunch of Robot Legion stuff, some a couple of firefight forces for some friends who want to play, all sorts of fun stuff. And I'm kind of really getting into printing skirmish forces lately, both for OPR and Frostgrave, and BattleTech of all things is definitely a skirmish scale game. I'm playing the Alpha Strike version, which I find very, very fun. It takes a lot of the fun parts of BattleTech and then just like speeds it up, because like as much as I love BattleTech, and I love it when the computer does all that work for me. So I love playing like the BattleTech video games and the MechWarrior video games. But when it comes time at the tabletop, I do kind of want to get my games quickly, and Alpha Strike is just perfect for that. And there's lots and lots of printable robots on the internet.
I do definitely like skirmish. Like I kind of joke, and my friends kind of hate me for this, where I'm like, if it's long enough to be an RPG session, I want to play an RPG session. So like sometimes some of the really high point value war games get into that range where I'm like, I would rather be playing D&D. But I want something shorter that I can play with just one or two people, because that's, like a better activity for that size than trying to do a game. You know what I mean? We also have James and David Whitaker, I think, in here. Or Wickham. There's lots of Daves who come by. MMF works. You change them to Chaos Toads. Yes.
So one thing I like about the skirmish forces is, and this has happened a lot playing with my younger sibling, of in the morning, hey, we should play blah blah blah, and I'm like, ooh, what about blah 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 versus blah blah blah? What about dwarf lords versus alien hives? Both of those go on the same print bed. 3 hours later,
you
they're
have the
done.
whole thing.
Then they can easily get slap
chopped. Yep. I've done
and
it.
then by the evening, you're playing the game. Like it's morning ideal to evening game, and it's so easy. And also, like, then you just like one of my little shelves over here holds 80 miniatures, standard scale infantry. That's a whole lot of skirmish forces.
Sure. I was just gonna say, like, it's like I posted that DTL when they did the Thanks promo where you could get their Teletubbies for free.
Yeah.
And I posted a video about that. I printed and someone said, hey, you should use this in a game. I printed them on Thursday, painted them on Friday, ran the game with the Teletubbies on Saturday. And, while doing a whole bunch of stuff, including getting ready to run a Kickstarter, like I was so busy, but I still had time to just kind of like beep, 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 and just, pop it right out. Same thing. I could easily see if you're doing a whole day Saturday, pick the skirmish team, print the skirmish team, paint the skirmish team, go. And that's amazing.
Blessed Camouflage. Are you my friend? Because that's the two forces they asked for. Anthropomorphic mammals versus reptiles with guns.
Yeah, fairly enough. Yeah, I like it. I've been accidentally assembling a massive hives army because I keep seeing all these things that are kind of like, okay, I'll be honest. I have FOMO over the new Tyranids. The new Tyranid models are gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Have you bought the new $250 box set of way
Hell
too many
no.
models?
No.
No.
If I buy anything in that range, it's gonna be a new Saturn. Like if I'm over $200, it's upgrade my printer time, or marketing for a Kickstarter.
I mean,
But
for a Horus Heresy, you can get the new Mars 3 Ultra,
yeah,
and it's not as big as a Saturn, but like it might be the perfect printer for printing minis for games, because it's the old skies. It's like it's the 6-inch screen, but it is like a workhorse in reliability, and it prints stupid fast. So if all you need is like huge miniatures or smaller, it's a great way to do that.
Duncan's here as well, right? This is like the coolest chat ever.
Oh yeah, the chat, you are awesome. Thank you all for showing up. Get any questions you all have in chat, because I would really appreciate it. And so, you know what else? There's some other printers you should be considering right now.
Let me guess. It's been a couple weeks since we talked about printers, so Elegoo must have a new one.
You know what? They absolutely do. Elegoo, what the heck? Seriously, y'all need to slow down. So remember Neptune 4 Pro came out just a little bit ago, that announced it, and people are finally starting to get it and print with it, and everybody loves it.
Yeah.
What if you want the Neptune 4 Pro, but bigger?
Dun, dun, dun.
Neptune 4 Plus and the Neptune 4 Max are now available. And pricing on these is like really, really nice. So much so that Max is tempting me at $470. Ooh. It's just like, ooh, I can justify that as a work expense.
Do they have a better control of their bed temp at that size? Because that's my biggest problem with all my big format stuff I've been trying. It's the bed temp gets weird and it's uneven.
So I do not know on that one. I do believe they have divided zone bed temperatures on that, but I can't say for sure. But they both have Clipper firmware with input shaping, which are capable of printing at 500 millimeters a second.
Nice.
For some context, I print at 50.
Yeah.
On my Neptune 3. The
which
default
was
Neptune 4
over the old one.
Right. The default Neptune 4 Pro has a 225, 265 millimeter build volume. So your standard Ender 3 bed slinger size, same as my Neptunes and all that jazz.
Yep.
The Plus goes to 323, 385. So a 50% increase. And then the Max goes 420, 420, 480.
Yeah, that's up there.
That is motorcycle helmet territory. That is entire playable castle territory.
My nephew just printed it's a big skull character. It's not Cubone, it's a new one. A new cosplay skull like head thing for one of his kids for Halloween.
Ooh.
And he did it on a very similar size printer like that.
They're adding Wi-Fi.
And that apparently works from your experience.
So I like the way Elegoo's been handling Wi-Fi lately, because early Wi-Fi was just like direct control of your printer from your computer, which is not super useful for me.
Right.
Because I still have to put the files on a USB stick or an SD card or whatever, or I'm trying to just live stream it from the computer to it's just a very wonky way of doing it.
Right.
LAN control also works. LAN control's been on the Neptune 4 Pro, so if you're willing to hook up a wire, you still get all these benefits. Right. But now what it does is it just lets you load files onto the printer. And yes, you can start it if you want to just tell the printer to start, if you wanted to go that path. But what I've been using it for is just replacing the USB stick, because now they have local storage on the printer. So I can just go, here's my print file. Here's everything I need to go. So I don't have to put it on a USB stick or a micro SD card and haul it over. I can just load it onto the printer and then walk over to the printer and start it. And so I can do all the things I usually do right before I do a print. It just makes things easier for me, which is all good stuff.
Split the big box with Church of Doom. He took the Marines design plan conversions.
Huh. Oh, TPK Terrain. I think it's been they bought the big Space Marine, the Leviathan box. Split the big box with Church of Doom. He took the Marines and is already plowing through conversions. I've barely snipped models off sprue. I hate to admit it, but my Indomitus box I put together one model, one Space Marine in my entire Indominus box.
Oh, wow.
So new, bigger, faster FDMs, or would you be tempted by a big FDM?
Again, it would be on ease for me because my problem is the problem for me. Like I have so many failures on FDM printers, and I have to like learn the secret back door. You need to use Aquanet, and you need to not print on this like quadrant of your print bed, and you can't have it on to vibrating of a surface, and you got it like all these things, and then also you have to be like willing to replace your hot heads and do this and that, and I'm just like, resin just works for me. Just works for me. Maybe it's because I'm just a gross gooey guy, so I am speaking to the goo. I don't know. Like,
slimes are my favorite monsters in D&D, so I understand.
They are. Did I not know that?
Slimes are awesome. I love oozes and slimes.
420 swing. That's a throwback TPK. That is a throwback. But yeah, slimes are awesome, and like I do like watching that moment when the thing comes up out of the goo. Like if I happen to be in the room when the print job's finishing and watch it like slide up in its totality and drip off, that is a moment.
That's a downside on the Ultra.
Oh,
because it has that black hood. I can't see inside of it. I don't see the cool print doing its thing.
Oh, I don't know if I like
if I stare
that.
real close, I can kind of make out what it's doing, so I know it's working.
But that's the thing. I'd be tempted to like prop it up and look.
But because it's silent, and because the ACF just releases and doesn't make noises,
it's like a ghost.
I barely know. It's like I'm just, it's a giant black box of, I hope models come out of this in 2 hours. By the way, I got the time down to print an infantry down to 2 hours now.
Nice.
Because it is the Saturn IV Ultra is all about speed. And when I engage that speed, entire plate of Dwarf in 2 hours.
Nice. You are making me very eager, for whining for Christmas. If only I hadn't spent the money on marketing.
Man, marketing expenses, they can get high in a hurry.
They sure can. Anyway.
Yeah. And then that was unrelated to the show, but like dealing with the launch of which I can't go into any backroom details, but like just the video that OPR has been teasing forever with Goobertailed and Miniature Wargaming. They're out.
Super cool, by the way.
Huh?
Which is super cool.
Yeah, it's out. And working with that team to get it all out and everything has been super fun.
Nice.
And super stressful.
Yeah, well, sure, I'm sure. Like, I love Brent, and I don't know the other guy, but I think that's cool. So, anywho, but I bet that's not the only printer you have to talk about.
No. I like printing big things, and I like big printers that can print big things,
like the garage printer that you can sit in.
You know who tells that made by layers printer how cute it is?
I'm assuming NASA
and their We Print Spaceships printer.
We print spaceships.
Yeah, real ones. Because NASA. So NASA's been, for the last couple of years, actually for a very long time, NASA's been doing additive technology, which is the sciencey name for 3D printing. They've been printing rocket hulls and spaceship parts for like the actual hulls for rockets and all that jazz for a little while now. And they just announced that they have developed a new rocket engine that is a rotational rocket engine that is 3D printed and is 30% more effective than any engine they've made before. Not just printed, just straight up 30% better than other engines.
Just because of the designs they can achieve with the 3D printing.
And it's exactly that. They can do precision designs and like what that would be impossible to make through any other manufacturing technique. One of the examples they give is that in order for those engines to work, you have to cool them at the same time that they're exploding. And how they do that right now is very, very, very tiny chambers that runs the rocket fuel through that is super chilled
Mm-hmm.
around the edge to cool it, and manufacturing those very, very tiny tunnels into the engine one at a time is extremely precise,
Right.
extremely costly, and time sensitive. And also, if you get it wrong,
Boom.
explosions, because
Yes.
you're dealing with super cool jet fuel.
As part of Generation Challenger, I don't think we need that ever again. So,
Exactly. But they can they with the new rotational rocket, they just made that part of the design, and it prints when they print the rocket.
well, yeah, that'd be cakewalk for the type of resolution and stuff that's available to 3D printing. So that's neat.
Yes. So first, really cool, like
Mm-hmm.
awesome stuff being done by NASA, and 3D printing, and not some obvious benefits and why I'm interested. But the other big reason I'm interested in is, do you have any idea how important it is when NASA says, "Ooh, technology, let me play with it," to anybody else interested in that technology? Because first, NASA's government. That means that
Sure.
the advances they make come back to the public for us to use
Right.
and
Of
any
course.
company to use. So now NASA is throwing its gigantic money cannon and their super research scientists at 3D printing stuff, which
Mm-hmm.
means we are going to get awesome, cool things like the space race gave us Velcro, people. Imagine what we'll get now.
I mean, I'm here for it. I'm starting to get to the resolution wise. I mean, I guess material science wise, we'll see
Mhm.
some crazy stuff soon. I bet.
Yeah, they were talking about, like, they call it like GM Pro, GM Cop 42 or something is the name of the material they're printing this stuff with, which is like
Mm-hmm.
this impossible to put together alloy unless you're using it in additive manufacturing, which is like super conductive and super strong and easily flexible and doesn't deform due to the many thousands of explosions going on, because the new engine
Mm-hmm.
generates propulsion by causing waves of the fuel to go into circles around it, which is why it's called rotational, and then crash into itself to then make rapid several thousand times a second explosions in a circle to propel it out, to give you thrust in that direction. It's so fun watching the science of this, and like, how did anybody ever think of this? Why isn't this why isn't this just like the biggest news ever? And watching the little graph of like, and now we're going to basically make a hurricane of explosions to power our spaceships.
I mean, I think the news cycle's pretty jaded, but I mean, that should have probably got a little better penetration.
Hurricane explosion is the first. They should have called it the hurricane explosion engine, because that's a much cooler name than the
Yes, that would have been cooler. The
rotational.
hurricane explosion engine.
Mhm,
Yes, that would probably market it a little bit better.
mhm.
Let's see. So, Blessed Simon Flange says, "How long till NASA gives us the OmniGel rapid 3D printing from the Omni tool for Mass Effect?"
I hope soon. I very much hope soon, because I'm definitely wanting to lean more into the Star Trek Mass Effect version of the future than the 40K version of the future.
Seriously, right? Although the Star Trek still had that whole, bad word war. The,
Yeah,
that
that
one.
has to happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully, I would just like to skip all that. Can we just
Mhm.
have like Utopia now?
That's yes, the utopia where we get to 3D print with toothpaste, and
Sure,
it is
sure.
awesome
Like
stuff.
you can just make your hot food. It's at the selectable temperature 3D printing. That would be cool too. I mean, you kind of have that already, but not nearly like you couldn't do like cold stuff and hot stuff on the same plate yet. Maybe,
Mhm.
maybe you can.
But
Anywho,
do you know what all this stuff sort of has in common? It has on my brain, though.
what's that?
Printing big things.
Yeah,
I like printing big things. Like I really do like that the Saturns and such let me print like a gigantic force of little infantry people in a
sure,
couple of
sure.
hours.
I definitely like big plates of
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But I like when I get like, one of the reasons I like playing war games is it gives me more of an opportunity to put down on the table the big old impressive critters on a more regular basis. Because yes, in an RPG campaign, eventually they start showing up towards the end. And like I remember my
Towards the
Rise of the Rune
end,
Lords.
you're too nice to your players. Go on.
I remember Rise of the Rune Lords towards the end, like throwing them like multiple rune giants and the big old gargantuan blue dragon and all that fun stuff happening. And
Sure.
yeah, and that's fun when you get to use them all. But usually, like in RPGs, you start a little bit smaller, and it's like
Mhm.
gnolls, troll, whatever. And
Yeah.
you don't get the it. I have to get some assistance to put the model on the table miniatures uh, right off the bat.
I mean, you can, but you probably don't very
Mm-hmm.
often.
But when
I,
you're playing a war game, the nice big centerpiece can come out right away. Like and and just also it's just really fun printing large things like terrain and such. And these new printers, like the Neptune 4 Max, obviously print gigantic things, print
yeah.
life size miniatures and pieces.
Mhm.
With the Saturns, you can print stuff. So I guess I want to go like let's talk about like printing big models for gaming.
Mhm.
What's your experience with this?
My experience?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have printed, usually I max out around gargantuan.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say my biggest pride and joy for single plate maneuver. Dragon Trapper's Lodge has this incredible gargantuan sized eldritch dragon. I think I've showed it to you.
Yes.
And I managed to put that puppy
Mm-hmm.
on a diagonal axis and print the whole dang thing in one piece, fused to its base. So like it is one solid piece, which is just so nice in terms of like durability and just putting it out on the table and just going clunk. And but that was it. And it was, I'm gonna say it's gargantuan. It's got like a 4x4 base. But that's probably my limit. I don't think I've ever made anything really colossal. I did do that Fey Hydra from Dragon Bond. That's pretty big too.
So with resin, I've done, like you said, about gargantuan, a little bit
Mhm.
bigger, a couple of like bordering on colossal size critters, um, printed in parts. But I have also done exactly what you said. Like when I wanted my high elf on dragon
Mhm.
model, and I wanted to be impressive, I got that forest dragon from um, what's the one that does all the really cool dragons?
Lord of the Print.
Lord of the Prince forest dragon.
Mhm.
And I merged. I went and kit bashed like a high elf general riding it, holding a sword and a flag, and just like looking all badass. And then like
Mhm.
merged that onto one piece, and then just like angled it just so that it would fit. I didn't put the base on it because I don't like to print my bases on my models. But like just getting that whole dragon in there and maxing out the build volume of the Saturn and just like boom, giant. So that's absolutely an option. If you've got a mid-size printer or bigger,
If
and
you angle
especially
it
if you've
right.
got like the big boys like the
Yeah.
Jupiters, then you can just put that stuff together and print it in one piece, which is why I'm glad that most providers do give you maybe not supported, but will give you the unsupported all-in-one model if you wanted to go
Which I
and do what you
adore,
want.
by the way. Like when I get the modular kits, that's great for kit bashing. It's great for variability. But if I have Thursday night to get something ready for Saturday, I don't want to also be like fusing or tweaking stuff around. Comet Lord says not every DM throws Eldritch Abominations at their level players. I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then they make fun of them and call them lobster ghosts. So, there's that. But yeah, I don't throw colossal Eldritch Abominations at my low level players usually. I see something lurking there. What is it? An
So
axe.
this is the Artisan Guild Frost Giant.
Ooh, he's a big boy and he's so pretty. Look at
He is
that.
so big. He's my
He's got
second
like
favorite
a
Frost Giant.
kind of Celtic slash Viking aesthetic, and it's really cool. So on what? That's also a gargantuan, yeah.
Yeah. I have him barely squeezed on a 75 square because
Mhm.
this was originally meant to be for Kings of War army. I was
Uh-huh.
doing a Northern Alliance
He's so
army,
good and such a good print.
and it has to fit on that base. But he barely fits. Like I've got a big toe on one corner and the other heel on the other, and it's just like if I didn't glue a giant rocks to it to hold him in place, he would just fall over.
Yeah.
In this one, I didn't print one piece. I went ahead and printed the modulars, which is again having the bigger print beds let you do that. Uh, is also good when you want to print stuffing in modular pieces because first they're pre-supported, so if you got good supports, that saves you time.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, you can throw all the parts on one bed. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
and what that does is you still have to put it together. Like you do, I think it was just like his torso and his feet. I think that was it. Torso, feet, and axe plug into fist. I think that was all three parts. No,
Yeah.
no, axe and hand. Axe and hand is one part. Torso, one part. Legs, one part. So three parts to get this guy printed, all on one print. And when you do that, it lowers the whole height down, so at least it prints faster.
Yes, yes. And I was going to say my experience with that, and since we're talking about big things,
Mm-hmm.
is I did a bunch of phoenixes because I did corrupted, dark, twisted phoenixes.
Ooh.
And shout out to
Mm-hmm.
is it Mini Monster Mayhem?
Mm-hmm.
Their modular stuff is so tight, and it's like their pre-supports to keep the warping down are really good,
Mm-hmm.
and they're slot fit and they're just gorgeous minis.
When
And
it's done right, where they can hide the joins, like
yeah,
in the
yeah.
belt, and using the bracer to hide
Well,
the
and
hand joint,
also
it's so
Scott
good.
here in chat had
Uh-huh.
some really cool big modulars that fit together quite nicely too.
Indeed.
But you can write down the lobster ghosts. I want to say they were actually supposed to be nightmare creatures from. Ooh, I want to say it was also a Draco release,
Mm-hmm.
but they had different forms, and some of them had claws that looked a little bit like lobsters, and some of them had tentacles.
Oh,
And
of
I went
course.
through like the whole like setup of them, so I have a whole squad of them.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, all they saw was the ones with the lobster claws, and I was trying to make them a composite of the nightmares of the children at this orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
And there were giant crayfish in the river, and that's what the kids would eat sometimes. And so, of course, like it was like this idea that they were inspired by the giant crayfish in the river, which is why I picked the lobster clawed minis. But no, they're just lobster ghosts now.
Lobster ghosts.
Yeah,
That reminds me of Todd Not Todd.
Todd, not Todd.
So in Reign of Winter, one of the bosses you'll fight early on is a troll named Todd McTodden. It's some like Irish name.
Mm-hmm.
And my players just heard that and went, okay, so we're fighting Todd Not Todd. And it just never ended.
Todd, not Todd forever. Yeah. The worst when you have like the big scary monster boss and you either mispronounce or you don't think about how the name sounds and you say it out loud that first time and they're like, his name's what?
Yeah, it happened because one of the players that overheard it had a 6 intelligence and failed a bad roll. So the joke was, yeah, his name's Todd Not Todd, and that they just ran with it forever.
Blasted Samafledge says, need to see more verticality in wargame tables. You know, I definitely came in from Team Necromunda was my like really good. I mean, I had a Tyranid army that I just liked because I liked aliens, but I got really into Warhammer stuff in general through Necromunda. And those boards and the different terraces and everything, so good, so good. We have someone from Twitch, Itami Kuro. Hi,
hello there. So when you're printing it modular, that's really good, and it will help you get a lot of prints done that you might not. And if you have a small printer, you have to print modular. Like if you're running like I said, I recommended the Mars 4 Ultra is probably one of the best printers to get going right now, and it can print this Frost Giant can be printed on that printer in 3 separate prints.
Yeah.
And then you'll have it. You'll have the cool freaking Frost Giant. And if you're willing to do that, that's fine. And it's kind of like in this same principle applies even when you're going gigantic. Because even if I had the Neptune 4 Max, like the big old, I can print an entire helmet on this in one go printer. And I decided, you know what I need for my next game? A life-size Black Knight to be at the door as a decoration for the game night.
Wow.
You know, then I'm still doing the same thing. You're printing in parts. And that's when you have to go back to familiar hobbying, because you know what is true for almost all 3D printing? Warping. Warping is going to happen. You minimize it. FDM has less of it than other forms of it. There's different resins that are better. You're going to do all sorts of things, but you need to, when you're starting to put these pieces together, you can either hide the gaps or you have to deal with warping
or fill.
And so what you need to go back to the basics, which means when you're putting things together, like old garage kits of yore, Get your green stuff, get your milliput, get you're going to be doing a little bit of sanding. This is back the 3D printer. When you're starting to go big, you're still just printing parts, and instead of being able to revel in the I don't have to put it together that we've kind of gotten used to with some of these things. It does kind of make the hobby feel a little bit more crafty again, because I do like that feeling of like getting my hands dirty and putting things together, and sanding the edges and filling in the gaps with a milliput and then matching
Depends
the
on the
texture with a
day.
sculptor.
Like, again, if I'm on a time crunch,
Mhm.
that's the worst for me. That's why oftentimes I am fusing everything together and doing
Mhm.
this big, massive single print.
I'm
But if I
very
have the time, it's fun.
I'm very rarely in a time crunch when I need a brontosaurus with a castle on its back.
I mean, I
Mhm.
always kind of need a brontosaurus with a castle on its back, desperately. But yes,
Yeah,
it's
and this isn't
probably
something you're likely to want to do on as like your primary hobby for 3D printing. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe this is where you find your joy and you become the dude who prints the huge things.
yeah.
Um, and it's so much fun. But you have to go back to the classics, and like even if you watch like the Loose Studios videos where they do a lot of this with
Hmm.
resin prints, like so a
Yes.
whole bunch of like little 6-inch cubes with like sheer cut lines, which is kind of the worst because that's where the warping is going to happen the most. And that's, you still have to like glue that stuff together in hot water to kind of get it to fit the better, and then fill the gaps and sand it and then prime it and paint it, and it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Alric is mentioning that RN studio. I think that is that assassin. I think I think
Oh
she was a
yes.
shadow elf or dark elf assassin or
Hmm.
something, and she was massive. She was really cool. And there is a
Well,
castle sore. Tommy Kuro says from Loot. I think it's actually a turtle. But what I want to print, if you want my like dream massive job, we have a Mage Guild game
hmm.
that is it operates out of an Oma, which are giant space whales.
Oh,
And I don't know if you've seen it, but DTL has a giant space whale ship that is
whoa.
massive. They've been printing it. Somebody's been working on it. The thing is huge. I want to say it's like 5 feet long
Hmm.
and playable. And I want it so bad. And I'm like, oh, but it would take weeks. And then painting it, I can't even imagine.
At
But I want
the
it.
Well, the good news is at that high end size, like when you're talking like the big boy miniatures, you
Uh-huh.
can often get away with FDM over resin for some of the bigger ones. And especially for like it's kind of the reason that terrain is printed like that to begin with. This I've shown this off on the podcast before, but like printing this thing was several days of printing on an FDM printer in
Right.
pieces and putting it together that way. And like, if you want to print big, FDM is kind of one of the default options.
Oh, yeah.
And I've seen people like take the Artisan Guild beholder, like that
Uh-huh.
really awesome gigantic beholder, and like blow it up to be like a statue and
Yeah.
printing it in pieces. And like you have to do that on FDM. Like,
I did the
mhm,
Asgard Rising Ruin Walkways. I have a
mhm.
whole set of those in FDM that's
Oh,
very,
really?
very, very playable, very, very
Mhm,
durable. I've used it at cons and at local game stores, and I love it because it looks great. And since it is rough hewn, crumbling stone, you don't really care
mhm.
about layer lines. You hardly notice them, and you've dry
Right,
brushed the hell out of it anyway.
right.
And but it's a massive set. It looks great, and I can take it and not worry about it. If a kid comes in excited and like knocks it all over, I'm more worried about the resin mini that
Mhm.
goes flying because that's gonna break. But that the it's you can knock those little archways and stuff around in the building parts. It's great.
One of these days, we're gonna finally get like invincible resin that you can like shoot out of a cannon.
I mean, maybe, but how much is it going to cost a bottle?
I don't confuse me with questions.
You know me. I ordered this stuff by the case, Barum. Although you seem like you're outpacing me on printing this month. I've got to catch up.
Mhm.
'Cause
I've seen
I was
a lot of.
lapping you earlier in the
Speaking
year.
of, there's been a lot of people running big sales on resin. Anycubic has been doing $20 per kilogram on their good stuff, their
Mhm.
ABS like usually $40 a bottle stuff. With the catch, you have to order 5 of them.
See, and that's the Sunlu thing too, right? They're usually like
Hmm.
16 or 17. But that stuff's great. Like,
Mhm.
especially for stuff that I'm not too worried about. Like, I'm just gonna play one off, and I'm probably gonna like be clumsy and break it anyway. Like, I might as well just print it in the $16 bottle resin.
Mhm. We have some other things that kind of like are tempting me. Um, Herberto says at ReaperCon, some of the guys at Texas Wargaming, another booth, got me to sculpt their mascot. First, awesome that you did that for them, Herberto. And then they printed it life size.
Very cool.
And remember when we were at Gen Con, the Humblewood booth had like up that owl at 2 feet tall, their mascot owl miniature printed up. I'm seeing a lot of game companies just like upscaling the minis to be like statues for booth displays and stuff.
Sure.
I'm really wanting to do that for booths that I might be managing going forward. And then Basa Samafludge says the biggest thing that their friends has printed was an FDM, a Legion scale AT-AT, which was just display. Best thing I've seen is the second Dynasty starships. Woo, big. Oh man, I remember the 28 millimeter scale AT-AT that Wizards put out. That was such an impressive mini when it hit the table.
Oh yeah.
And Herberto says, I have no use for a second Dynasty starships, but I'm so tempted to do it just because it looks so cool. Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen this many.
Mm-hmm. I kind of do like miniatures that are so big they can double as terrain.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's same thing. Dice towers. I will never use a dice tower unless it's like an actual terrain piece dice tower.
Alex Schivler, life size OPR rat boy pair. I don't know. That'd be cool. Maybe one of the buddies.
So say I don't think you have any OPRUs. All of ours were Duskrealm, weren't they? The us's.
Yeah, there's no me. There's no me from OPR, and
just Duskrealm, who I think has decided to no longer produce minis. So
yeah, they got hired by Wargames Atlantic.
Right. But I'm just saying that they're not doing their independent stuff on the site anymore.
Right.
So there is no more us's. There is only future dwarf us's and past halfling us's.
And then there was the last sword me that was.
I know you have more than me. It's fine.
Sorry,
I'm secure.
I'm just trying to tell people about the truth.
No, it's true. You can get elf general Param also. Yep. There is no elf general me, and that's okay because I'd probably look really weird as an elf. I'm too big.
I kind of like it because there's like very little chubby elves out there, and then like Last Sword made a little chubby elf general, and it's like, oh, that's cool.
It's adorable. Although I do think both of us suit more the halfling dwarf
aesthetic.
Yeah. I would be fine with like a human fist mage me. That would be pretty good too.
And at no point in time do I ever ask for these. I very much appreciate any of the fan art that gets made, and like I always have, and it's always super flattering when it happens. And I very much appreciate it, but I would never commission a model of myself. I would die of embarrassment.
Yeah, Comet Lord mentions, I love the idea of a monster that's also trained sculpting, designing, and releasing it. Yeah, it has a playable, big, massive monster mini that's it's got places you can put minis on it. That's nuts. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, so anything you want to shout out to?
Well, if are we two shout outs? It's a little bit early for that, but if it's where we are, it's where we are. Not surprising anybody. Monolith Arts has started Lost Souls 4.
Oh yes.
So more terrifying,
I want more,
and undead, and they're amazing. And it's so funny because we've never had them on the show. I don't think I know anybody from the company. I don't care. I've backed all their Whispering Woods stuff. I've backed all their Monolith, all their Lost Soul stuff, and I have never regretted it once. Again, there was a nice pre-launch model, but I think it's already passed. But it doesn't matter. Just go back it. It's amazing. If you like terrifying Dark Souls-esque ghosts, very strong Mordor / Lotro vibes for this as well. Like very much like Witch King-y Nazgul energy. And if you're high off of the Lord of the Rings magic set that like re-upped the love for Nazguls in the community again, go get that if you're a printer also, because I have the trifecta. I have my 3D printing, I have my D&D, and I also have magic, and they're all kind of touching each other right now, which is good for me. Some people don't like it, but I love it.
So I'm going to shout out this Kickstarter going on right now called the Clockmasters Codex over on Kickstarter. Somebody called Seventh Mastery is putting together this compilation of GM advice from a bunch of TikTokers that has a good, unique perspective on how the RPG industry can go.
And this is
Uh,
why I'm terrible at self-promotion, but thank you. Yes.
and so y'all should go check that out and pledge in and help it meet its goal, because this is a area of gaming history that is very ephemeral due to the nature of TikTok. So being able to document and record and have like some concrete evidence that this community existed might become um,
Who
important
knows?
someday.
It might. It might. And even if it doesn't, I'd like to do a follow-up eventually. And speaking of which, since we're talking about it, if
Mhm.
you're a 3D mini person, there are werewolves that you will get immediately on the end of the campaign,
And
assuming we
bat
make it.
dragons.
And then there's there's bat dragons, and those will be Halloweeny.
Mhm.
And there's a massive steampunk train dragon. If
Mhm.
that's not enough, if the Halloween minis aren't enough for you, there's
Mhm.
iron golems and a steampunk train dragon from DTL. Those things right there pretty much pay for the digital pledge right there.
I
So
really love the Fleshcraft vampire rotting werewolf. Like you
yes,
don't see that often.
yes, and speaking of lovely, I will say I actually reached out to Frecky after I printed that
Hmm.
set, because I was painting it up to show off to people,
Hmm.
and that pre-support, I think he said Table Flip did it, but those were some of the most satisfying pre-supports to
Hmm.
pop off. Nicholas, the ideal tier, I mean, if you want, I will run you a game if you get that tier. There's a high tier where I run you a game. You also get a copy of my old campaign setting. I will run in any system you want. So I'll even learn a new system if you want me to. And it gets all the bells and whistles. You get the physical book, you get the digital book, you get all the resources. There's PDFs of like how to do your session zeros and how to I'm introducing my player priority system, which is something I've been working on for years in the shadows. And it's a whole thing about how to dial in what your gaming group actually wants to get out of the game, and it's system agnostic stuff. And that's the whole book is system agnostic. That is more intended to refine what you're already doing. It's not like, and it will work for a new GM. There's actually a great little piece that blue haired GM is working on, blue haired DM, that is about starting on like a zero budget,
Hmm.
and literally just starting from nothing and how to get into it. His story is incredible. He walked into a gaming cafe to play Adventurers League for the first time. The DM no showed, and the guy's
Oh
like,
no.
we're going to have to cancel unless somebody's willing to run it. He'd never played Dungeons and Dragons before, and he volunteered to dungeon master it. That was his introduction. Like, will of iron. Can you imagine? I've never played D&D. I'm going to go into a gaming cafe with public place with strangers and dungeon master for the very first time. He took 15 minutes, got the scenario, and he just ran it, and people loved it. And he was like instant forever DM. But incredible. Such a positive dude. It has a whole thing about like getting involved from zero. So and then Caro, fantastic creator about modules. I mean, there's just so much stuff in it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Awesome.
check it out if you're a dungeon master, game master, or you just like the 3D minis. There's also Eyes on the Moon is doing custom music for it, so
Ooh.
that's kind of cool. Custom mood music for your D&D sessions or whatever game it is. You could play it in the back of your war game. I don't do whatever you want with it. He's an amazing dude.
I think like the back of my war game is just like the Doom soundtrack on loop.
Yeah. I often use a Gothic Storm or Epic Score. Also has really good position music that's really dramatic, and some of it vibes very strong 40K for me. So I use that a lot. But yeah,
So are you going to be printing anything upcoming soon that we can look forward to?
well, I already did most of the werewolves, and so
Hmm.
I'm probably just because I want to show it to people before the campaign's over. I'm gonna tackle the Steam Dragon. I'm nervous because
Yes.
speaking of huge things, it's massive. So
How big is
um,
this thing?
it's going to be like 2 or 3 plates. It's big.
Of 2 or 3 Saturn plates?
Saturn plates. Yeah, it's a big boy.
Oh boy.
Big boy.
All right,
uh,
everyone.
yep.
If you want to engage in the large thing that is our back catalog, you can find all of our episodes over at prejogames.com, where you'll find links to all of our socials and all the fun places you can support us. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Chris Sowards, also known as Seventh Master. And don't forget to use your screen protector unless you have a cool printer that doesn't need one anymore.
Bye.